I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
Well, good morning. Welcome to the Homeschool Counseling Network vlog. Today we have with us Natalie Mack. Natalie has so many accolades behind her name, and she's one of the busiest people I have met, as well as being a seasoned and veteran homeschooler and a mentor to me personally. But I'm going to let Natalie tell you all about who she is, her experience, and what she has got going on. Welcome, Natalie. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Kimberly. You are a dear. I am so happy to be here. I am honored. So I appreciate you, love you, and we have so much in common. So I am, as you already know, Kimberly, but for the audience listening and viewing, I am a retired Navy Chaplain spouse. So shout out to my MILF spouse mamas, and obviously we have been all over the world, living life, serving and truly loving it, even with the sacrifice that is obvious with military life. So we have 5 children, and we have been a homeschooling family within the military context for 23 plus years. I think I have to count in my head. So, 4 of those 5 were homeschooled to college. They are all now college graduates. And we have a rising 12th grader that we have one more year to just enjoy and mentor and just hold on a little bit longer and then launch him to
Yes.
wherever the next path is. So that's in bulk about me. I have a couple of businesses, but we'll talk about those at some point. But yeah, in general, that's who I am. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you. I will say I'm just going to give a few more of your accolades a little
Oh,
bit
okay.
because I want them to know how thankful I am to have you here and how beautiful the friendship and professional relationship that we have had has blessed
Oh,
me,
thank
and
you.
how I know that you can bless other homeschooling families out there.
Oh,
Natalie has an amazing TED Talk video talking about the impact of homeschooling with her signature catchphrase that I keep it in my head when the days are long, even though the years are short. Let's get it done. And it goes
yes.
a long way, I'm telling you. So I'm going to put a link in the description box below to Natalie's TED Talk and a card up here, because I hope that her TED Talk will bless you and inspire you the way it has me. I've watched it a couple of times now for those days when I'm like, okay, I just need a little bit of support.
A little
Reminder.
right?
A little oomph to remind me of why I do what I do. Natalie also works with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. She does have a couple of businesses, but we are also going to talk a little bit more later on about her latest launch, which is her nonprofit, the Military Homeschoolers Association.
So excited.
Proud of that. I have been praying over that and pouring into you for that to come to fruition.
Thank you. Everybody needs friends like you. Everyone needs friends like you. Yes.
Ditto back at you, and I appreciate it. Today, I am excited to have Natalie on because Natalie, like me, we are both professional counselors. And even though I'm going to give my little bit of discretionary statement here, my disclaimer, which is whatever you hear in this podcast is not going to be, or this vlog episode is not to be considered professional counseling advice by any means. Yada, yada, yada.
Yes,
so I will say all of that and put my disclaimer below. Just have
times two. Disclaimer for me too.
Exactly. Well, Natalie, we are so thankful to have you back in studio. And today we are going to talk with you about bibliotherapy and your book that you have. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Your beautiful, beautiful book. And if you want to check out other videos and our other talks that we've had with Natalie, where she chatted with us about National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, I'll put a card up here and a link in the description box below so you can catch that interview. But today we're going to talk with Natalie about her book, 101 Tips for Homeschoolers, Loving Your Homeschool Experience. So, Natalie, you are a military homeschooling mama, a seasoned one. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and your story and what it was like to homeschool while traveling all over the world in the military?
Yes. So, hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. One of my favorite topics is talking about military homeschooling. I am a passionate retired military spouse now, but we served alongside my husband. And when I say we, myself and the 5 kids, I'll talk about them. We served, military families served. There's the active duty member, but the whole family serves. And so for 34 years, we were an active duty military family. Well, there was some reserve time in there too, I should say.
Thank you for your
But
service.
thank you so much. I can squirrel with the just you saying thank you for your service because I have a perspective on that. But let me stay focused on your
Right.
original question is, what it was like, right, as a military homeschooler. Oh my gosh, it was such an incredible journey. Such an incredible journey. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer out there for my male spouses, right? And I coined the word male homeschoolers, right? So, for all of us out there, I do want to put a disclaimer that I am not in any way diminishing or ignoring or living in a bubble saying, "Oh, her life, how could she say it was incredible journey or whatever when, I'm hating it or my husband's constantly deployed or not home and I'm struggling." I get that. I'm not at all just, diminishing that. That's some of those are very real realities of military
Mm.
life. And so having said that, I recognize you and I see you if that's your case. And we've lived through that. So I'm not at all sitting high and looking low. But I want to say that the incredible journey for us was the military with its constant relocation, right? And there are families that
Mhm.
don't relocate as much, but the bulk of the military relocates about every 2 to 3 years. And that allowed us to help our children, our 5 children, understand what it's like to have to readjust to different communities, different people, different locales around the world. And it allowed them, like when we moved overseas to Naples, Italy, language, right? Learning the importance that not
Right.
everyone speaks English, or, not that all Italians don't speak English. I'm just saying that, that their language is Italian, right? And so respecting that in the culture and all of that was really important for us. And so traveling within the United States and seeing the differences from one state to the next and the different dialects and if you're going through Texas, right? And some of and different than someone that maybe is in Atlanta. And it was an
Mhm.
incredible opportunity for our family to really take learning to a different level. Um, we were and we are still, because we have one left to still finish homeschooling. We are an eclectic homeschool family. So I've used some Charlotte Mason. I love classical. We've done some textbooks here and there, some online platforms. I teach, love to teach. And so eclectic in our homeschooling, right? Just meeting the needs of our each of our children. And I think I did the TEDx, that the impact of homeschooling. It talks
Mhm.
about our whole journey, and you can see what I mean when I'm talking about eclectic, right? And how we were able to try, with God's grace, to meet the needs of each of our children. And so military life allowed us to do that. And there were hard times as well. But the military, one of the things that I think the military does really well that I don't see in any other institution is we have community.
Yeah.
We have community, and it's up to you to involve yourself in the community, right? I know I do talk to military spouses who say that's my husband's job. I have a different perspective after all the years as being a seasoned military spouse. I'm like, it's everybody's job, literally. It's a culture, it's a family. I think that's when it really shines the best in terms of the military life. And that community is when we all embrace it as a lifestyle. Um, and to come alongside our fellow military families, that we're all in this together. I also know that our surrounding communities, the civilian communities, the non-military, you may live in a community where there's an Air Force base down the street, and
Mm-hmm.
you may be thinking, oh, I'm so tired of the planes going over and they're so loud and they make it, and while that's the reality, because I don't live near an Air Force installation, I also do recognize that you may have seen the sign at the front gate saying the sound of freedom. And so for me, yeah, we're all, including us, sleeping
Mm-hmm.
well at night, not
Yes.
having to watch our back because someone else is on watch. And so I'm like thankful for their service. I'm thankful for my husband's service. I'm thankful for my service, helping him be available to serve. And I'm thankful for all of my military spouses, my military families for their service, right? And the wives and the husbands, because there are active duty women, right? Who come alongside, right? And we're all in it together. And that's a message I hammer home whenever I speak around the world. I'm always an advocate for military families, but I'm also an advocate for community. So, yeah.
And that is so true. You cannot exist in isolation as you shouldn't. We were created literally for
Yes.
community.
Yes. Yes. So true.
So true. Well, thank you so much for sharing the challenges and the hurdles and being honest and saying, you know what, it is not all sunshine and rainbows, but
Yeah.
as a family, we focus on this because that really strengthens the family unit. That is where, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I'm like, that is where definitely the counselor shines in you. It shines in how you communicate with others. It shines in how I even see the influence of your husband, Navy Chaplain, retired Navy Chaplain.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Exactly.
shining through you because that literally permeates through the entire family and it permeates
Oh,
into their
wow.
spouses. I see it pouring
Yes.
through you, and I'm sure the same goes the way. I've not met him pouring through him as well.
Yes.
But yeah, so he's got a little bit of that counselor poured into him as
Yeah.
well as you've got
He,
as the chaplain part of him is
he-
poured into you,
you're
and then
so
beautifully
right.
poured
I
into
have
your
people
children. And
yeah, I have people who say, oh, when they find out that I, was a prior clinician and, they're
mhm.
like, "Oh, that's why it's so easy to talk to you." Like, I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm not like consciously putting on a counselor hat. I don't walk around with it, but I guess it's just I think it's just firmly planted on you and on
It's
me, right? It's just there. So,
I think it's just part of our personality. I think that's what gravitates us to the field to begin with. It's not funny,
yes.
but my joke is that the only thing I ever got in trouble for growing up in school was talking.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did listen to. I just made it
Yes.
into a career.
Right, exactly. Good for you.
Yeah, very little math. I can do this.
Yes, right.
and I
Exactly,
and
I
a love
agree.
for others and a love for
Yes,
helping others because
yes.
it's in you. We come out of the womb this way. We just kind of do.
I'm confident of that. You're right.
You keep saying former clinician, and that's true. And I know what you mean. I can say that too because I'm not practicing as a therapist
Yes,
anymore.
yes,
But
yes,
once a helper,
yes.
always a helper. It
That's
shines through
true. That's true.
in the work that you do, and it shone through beautifully in this book. Let's talk about Natalie's book today and why I think
Okay.
it is. It's deceptive. I will say that, and
Yes.
that it looks like a quick read.
Yeah.
Take your time with it because her book it packs a punch for this powerful little book. I was like, oh, I can read this. I'm not going to be reading this quickly. The point is to read it slowly. It takes you on
Yes,
a journey. I describe, and
yes,
her book is, by the way, I find it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description box below. You can also find it at
yeah.
Natalie's website. But the title of her book is 101 Tips for Homeschoolers
Mhm.
Loving Your Homeschool Experience. We all
Yes,
know that the days are long and the years are short, and we've
yes.
all had those days where you question, why did I do this to begin with? Do I
Right,
want to do this? Have I
right.
lost my mind? Or even when
Yeah,
we have that imposter syndrome,
yes.
which I had to
Right,
begin with. I've worked
right.
in public education. I was a guidance counselor. But if you had
Mhm.
asked me when my son was born, would I homeschool him? I would have looked at you like you had a peacock on your head
Yes.
and
Yeah,
said,
why would I do
no
that?
way. Why would I
Right?
do that? I'm a public school kid. It worked for
Yes.
me, but
Yes.
those were my plans and my ideas, and God will
Right.
come right in and go, about that.
Yes.
These
Yes.
are my plans and my
Yes.
ideas, and I'm going to bring you around to it. He's a gentleman, and he will
Yes.
wait, and he will nudge, and
Yes.
you will feel it in your heart. As you mentioned in your TED Talk, Natalie has
Yes.
this beautiful TED Talk. I'm going to put it, I think I've already mentioned it, but I'm going to put a card up here and the link in the description box below that talks about the impact of homeschooling. And in the beginning
Mhm.
of it, you talk about how you're holding I don't think it was your youngest child at the time. It was your fourth child, I think
Right.
you were holding at the
Right.
time in church, and how this something rose up in your spirit and spoke to
Yeah.
you and said, okay, I need more connection with my children. And what is more
Mhm.
connecting than
Mhm.
homeschooling your child?
Mhm.
It's because it
Exactly.
is not easy. You do it because
Yes.
you love your child, you love your children,
Yeah.
you want to pour in
Yes.
into them, not because you particularly love teaching. I
Right.
love teaching
Yeah.
too. It's not all of
Yeah.
them. But
Yeah.
Natalie's book, I'm telling you, is your counselor heart, your helper heart, the influence of your chaplain husband shines through beautifully
Oh, that's a blessing. That's
book,
a blessing.
through this book.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm gonna call it more than tips. I'm literally gonna step out there and call it part devotional,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
part part almost professional workbook is what I would call it, because you ask some big questions, you put them in there beautifully, they're in layman's terms, but it is a self inventory.
Yes. Yes.
Self
Yes.
inventory. It packs a powerful punch. So, can
Yes.
you tell us, as you impart your knowledge to readers, you encourage self awareness through self exploration, what inspired you to approach writing your book from that angle or in this format?
Yeah. So I was laughing thinking, you were gonna ask that question, and I'm thinking, I have a dear friend I should shout out. Cheryl Carter is her name, and I've
Okay.
known her since maybe 2005, so a few years now, and a homeschooling mom. And we met at a homeschool family retreat at Sandy Cove Christian Conference in a little town called Northeast Maryland. And she, over the years, would say, "You have lots of books in you." And I'd say, "Oh, really? Like, you see books in me?" Like,
Hmm.
I just
Hmm.
have, I have a baby on the hip or baby at the breast or whatever it is. I'm like, "Okay, you see books in me. Okay, all right. You're a little crazy, but it's all right." Oh, so over time, I knew she was right. I knew she was right. And so she challenged me a few years ago when we caught up with each other again and said, "Okay, have you written anything?" And I was like, "Well, I've been writing some articles for the old schoolhouse. I've been writing different articles for, been on podcasts and all." She's like, "Yeah, okay, but where's your book?" And I was like, "Okay, okay, okay." So I felt God saying, "Okay," like you said, how God sends people along, right, to nudge you. And
Yes.
also, she was one of those people over the years that God sent. And finally, I heard clearly that this was also what He called me to do. And so I just started writing. I will be very honest. I'm one of these type of writers, and then my husband laughs because I love studying. I love school, right? I love
Mhm.
learning, is what I should say. And so I would always tell him, when he was working on different, like his master's and his doctorate, he has a doctorate of divinity. So I was like, just just get started writing. Don't worry about the thesis. Don't you're stuck trying to come up with a thesis statement, right? Just get started writing and it will develop. In your writing, you will figure out the
Mhm.
thesis. Now, obviously, I'm not a writing instructor, so I know if you're a writing instructor and you're listening, you may be like, "Oh, why did she put that out? That's terrible recommendation." But it works for me. So how's that
Yeah.
relevant to the 101 tips for homeschoolers book? Is that I just started writing. And I even got eventually to where I realized I'm writing tips, right? And
Mhm.
then God jokingly had me go past 100 unknowingly, and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, 101. Okay, God." So and then it just stopped. Like it was done. He was done. And it wasn't this real spiritual experience. So I'm not gonna, I don't want to misidentify it, but it was clearly me knowing that this is something God wanted me to do, and I just was jotting my thoughts about things I had learned, experienced, things that I felt would be helpful to share with the larger homeschool community. And as a result, I thought next thing was, let me write a prompt. Let me put a prompt in there so that you're just not taking in my thoughts. Let's figure out what do you think about this, right? And some journal lines. And so it evolved kind of in a step by step. It didn't start out with, I'm going to write a tip journal and I'm going to put my thoughts, a prompt, and lines for journal entries. That never was the beginning plan. And um, so yeah, it's amazing how, and I love to write. I do. And so, like I said, I write a lot with magazines and other places. So it just, and I do have a few other books in the works that I need to work on and bring across the finish line. So yeah,
Mhm.
but that one, and I've been told a lot of what you just said about that book, about the 101 tips for homeschoolers, that it packs a punch, right?
It does.
And I'm thankful for that. I'm prayerful that God is using it to just encourage other homeschoolers along the way. So, and to love, right? To love their homeschool experience. So yeah,
What came through for me just so effortlessly, and that's not easy to do,
yeah,
to write it and for it to come through effortlessly, is it feels like sitting down. I'm not going to call it a therapy book. This is not a therapy book. Here's our
you're right.
disclaimer. None of the
Right.
information that
Yes.
we
Yes.
reveal in this brief talk
Right.
is considered professional counseling advice
Yes.
whatsoever.
Exactly.
I'm simply
Right.
going to share how the book made me feel and the
Yes.
experience that I had from it as
Right.
a homeschooling mom, as a working homeschooling mom,
Yes.
launching a nonprofit, doing all the
Yes.
things as a therapist as well. What it felt like
Yes.
for me is sitting down and having a conversation, not necessarily a therapy conversation, but you know
Yes.
how when we would go have supervision before
Yes.
were getting our license, or even after
Yes.
supervision when we would still
Yes.
go have consultation,
Yes. Yes.
because even as therapists, we don't know what we know
Mhm.
sometimes
Mhm.
when it
Mhm.
applies to us. We
Right.
don't have all the answers for ourselves. We don't practice in a vacuum. None of us
Right.
exist in a vacuum.
Right.
And so that's why we need that community. And that's why
Yes.
even a book and bibliotherapy can be
Yes.
another form of community. I think this would be an excellent book for a book club. For if you are, because homeschooling goes in
Yes.
seasons. There are moments
Yes.
when you love it. There are days when you're like, I do not want to get out of bed today. And for
Exactly.
me,
Can
it's
someone else come do this, right?
someone
Sure,
else.
I
Can
was
someone else?
called, God. Yeah.
I mean, sure. I'm like, my
Yeah, I
math
think you
isn't
got this
mathing
wrong,
today.
God. Yeah, I think you got this wrong. Maybe you should have stopped next door, right? I don't think I was supposed to be, or and funny, early on in the years, um, like really, really, obviously early on, our oldest daughter, who was 9 when God called us to homeschool, she said, "Oh, I was exhausted. I was having one of those days like we were just talking about." And I said, "Oh, I'm just going to put everybody on a school bus, right?" And that's a common thing that homeschoolers joke about, and some people probably have actually done it. So I'm not going to just say that it's a joke. Somebody listening may say, "No, it wasn't a joke for me. I actually did it." So, but for me,
Zero
I just
judgment.
was yeah, yeah, right, exactly. So for me, I was just tired, right?
Yeah.
And my oldest daughter said, homeschoolers, right? And we'd only been homeschooling maybe a year and a half, but she said, "But mommy," and I'm like, I know something's coming, that's gonna challenge me to my core.
Mm,
And
mm.
she said, "I thought that you told us God called us." And I get tears now. Mm. Somehow it just hit me. I didn't prepare for that. But that God
Bless
called
your
us to
heart.
homeschool. That's what she said. I thought that you told us God called us to homeschool because we had pulled them out of a private Montessori school. And she trusted, you know, she trusted that that was the truth. She trusted that that God had called through me us to homeschool. And why was I talking about putting them on a school bus? No condemnation for those who have done that.
Right.
right? I support everybody's family to make the choice that's best for them. But for us, I had told them God called us, and to those He calls, He equips. So I need to get on my knees, not talk about,
Mm,
not shout down threats
no.
about putting people on school buses. That wasn't what God called us to do. And she reminded me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So you got me crying, Kimberly.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm like,
the
no one else knows
hey, hey,
what.
hey, clinicians cry too, right?
And we cried together. And this
Right.
and this is
Uh,
community. But I'm so glad to hear
yes,
you actually say that, because whenever I see
yes.
Natalie, she's always smiling. Everything's going well. And this is just an opportunity where she is showing you her human side, her human. Oh my goodness,
Yes,
I wipe going, well, the
yes.
mascara
Ye
will be to my nose in a minute, and
Yeah, I
that's
know.
okay
I
too.
know. It's
And
okay too, right?
it
So,
is.
yes,
I feel openly and freely. But how beautiful was it in that moment that God chose your child, whom you love?
yes,
We love our children more
yes,
than our
yes,
lives
we
ourselves,
do.
to gently convict us and remind
Mhm,
us, because
mhm,
it's not going
mhm,
to be easy. Following in
mm-mm.
faith is not easy. It's not promised to be
Right.
easy. Trials come with
It's
it.
not. I know.
But we don't go through it alone. We have Him. And
Right.
that is when we were reminded, okay, I don't do this in
Yeah.
my strength. I do this in His strength. And that is and I know we're taking a
Exactly.
sidebar here on faith, but we
No,
are a
I know
homeschool
it.
family of faith.
Yes. Right.
And we are in agreement with that. But it's where you get on your knees when you can't
Mhm.
stand.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I was convicted, never
Mhm.
said it again. And I laugh when I hear homeschools. I'm like, okay, if God called you, He's going to send something to convict you, you know? So
Mhm.
it's probably going to be your daughter or your son, you know? So,
Or for
yeah.
me, my son, who is a version of mini me, because I'm always going,
Yes.
Lord, please help me. I don't know how to parent myself. I need a
Yes.
little help here. My husband,
Yes.
who's just smooth waters run deep. He's
Yes.
the yin to my
Yes.
yang. He's all,
Yes.
there's two of you. I'm like, there are, and we're really sorry about that, but we love you
Yeah.
so much.
Yes.
If he calls you to it, he will see you through it.
Yes. Amen.
Those moments will pass.
Totally. Totally. Totally.
Those
I
moments will
time and time
pass.
again experienced it. Time and time again.
Yes, still experiencing it. I will.
Mhm.
You talk about that for 1 minute, and it is a theme that
Yes.
let's just kind of move on to that, because it is a
Yeah.
theme that you talk about, because it's a very real thing. And
Yeah.
we use it with humor. We use it sometimes when we're like, that's it, I'm ready to quit, when we want to reach out to
Mhm.
friends. But it's that theme of burnout. And
Mhm.
it's very common with parenthood. There's the theme of burnout,
Mhm.
but that one you really can't quit. That's you're
Mhm.
kind of with
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah. Don't
But
quit. Don't quit that one, please.
don't quit that one either. Please don't. But burnout is a real thing, and
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't hit us until we realize it. But
Right.
your book was very I'm telling you, this is a recurrent theme through it, and it is what I needed, especially as we're entering middle school, and I'm a little
Yeah.
nervous. I don't even want to think about high school. That's
Yes.
talk to me in a
I
couple
hear
of years.
you.
Middle school's bad enough already. I say
Yeah.
bad enough, hard enough for me. He's going to be
Yes.
fine. It's
Yes.
me that's going, I didn't do that great in math the first time. Well, God will provide me with people to
He
help
will
me with it. Thank you,
provide. He will
YouTube. And
provide.
thank you,
Yeah. He
teachers. He
cares.
always
I mean,
provides.
yeah, he cares more. I mean, he cares more about our children than we ever could, and that's like
Yes.
how could that be possible, right? Because we love him with every inch of our soul. But yeah, so trust walk.
No, it is. That's true. Our children are on loan to us. They are on
Yeah.
loan to us. They were his first, and we are
Yeah.
his children too. And I think in
Right.
part of that, with the burnout, there's one thing that you speak about, and you're gently leading us to it in your book with the
Uh-huh.
various different questions and this self exploration of basically self care.
Yeah.
As mothers, as nurturers, oh my goodness, we tend to put ourselves last, and
Yeah.
somehow we convince ourselves that that's what we should do to be good caregivers, but you can't pour from an empty cup.
No. Right.
Self-care is not selfless. Can you speak about the theme of self-care and the importance of taking care of yourself so that you can, because homeschooling is a marathon, it is not a sprint. Can you
Yeah.
speak about that theme and through your book of self-care?
Yeah. So again, that's a piece that fits right in with the fact that when I started writing, I just started writing. I wasn't aware God was pulling that theme right throughout the book and weaving it. And and in true transparency, I haven't done the best job at the self-care myself. Um, but I really realize over time, maybe it's the therapist in me, I don't know, but how important it really is that you find what gives you that self-care, what renourishes you. And there's so many different options that it could be. Obviously, for you and I, and for others who are of faith with Christians, there's deep value, right, in time with
Mm-hmm.
God,
Mm-hmm.
the Word of God, prayer. I haven't always done the best with that, so even as a chaplain's wife, right. Some
Mm-hmm.
weeks, the first time I was cracking the Bible was sitting in church, hear my husband say, "Okay, we're going to go to Matthew, such and such." I was like, "Oh Lord, another week I didn't really get to my word. Oh Lord Jesus, help me." But I know, and here's the tears again. I know that my life, God has always responded. He just he doesn't expect us to be perfect. And I think we put so much on ourselves to be perfect that somehow we fail. Like somehow, oh Lord, I didn't get to the word this week. Here I am, first time, and I failed. God, no, 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 no. Come to him. Re, you know, you get reconnected, re-nurtured to start again. It's the heart. It's the heart. And he always knew my heart was connected to him. I didn't always live it out in my actions, but that wasn't important to him because it's the heart connection, right? And so I'm not saying that time in the word isn't important, you all. I'm just
Yes,
saying that don't condemn yourself. God is not a God of condemnation. So
it's not.
we need to like walk in that. It's so important. And we can condemn ourselves so much quietly. That's the thing. It's a quiet condemnation to so much, and
Yes.
it becomes so normal we don't even realize it. Not a lot of us go around and share, "Hey, I'm condemning myself today. I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't do this." Hey, I have a spirit of condemnation and it's all on me. No one walks around and says any of that. But your inner thoughts, that's where it's happening. And that's where God can meet you, right? In the inside, in the inner thoughts. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but I just felt like
Yes.
that was what God just gave me to say. Because I just realized I'm walking that journey too. But that was apparently something he wanted me to thread through for others to actually hear. And I'm grateful, I'm thankful when you say what you say, because like again, I didn't know where I was going with the book, right? And
Mhm.
I'm thankful for where I ended up, and I really feel it was a blessing, the whole experience. So when I hear that others have been blessed by it, and it is a journey of self exploration and, you know, uh, self care and all those things, I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, God, because that's what I would have put. You did a good job, God, because that's what I would have, if yeah, I think you did good, God, right? So God laughs like, okay, you think you're telling me I did good. Okay, now the joke's on you, right?
In your book, though, you can tell that you were the vessel and he was writing through you.
Oh,
It
praise God.
shines. It totally shines.
Praise
And
God.
it's, even though like I said, homeschooling has seasons. And for the
Yes,
moments when it's hard, whether it's illness that's
yes,
come into your life, for me, oh my
right.
goodness, this past year was, if I see one more tummy bug,
Yes,
toddlers, I thought we were past that now. But
yes,
you know
yes,
what? It's a season. It's a
yes,
season.
yes,
And, he'll carry you through it. Go back to
right.
him and he will carry you through it. That's why I say your
Exactly.
book is more than just tips. It's a bibliotherapy tool. It's self-exploration. It's I
Yeah,
would even go out there to call it a devotional. I would even call out
I
there
hear
because
you.
there are moments of it that come through
I
that. I
hear
know
you.
your publisher might say
Well,
don't promote it that way, but for me, that was
well,
my experience.
interesting enough, I am writing a devotional. At least let me say this again. This was another God thing. Um, Sitting in church over a year ago, and scripture was put out, preacher started, and I was like, and I'm hearing God like, jot that down, which makes sense. You're in church, and it's not an
Mhm.
uncommon thing to jot the scripture down, right, for the sermon.
Right.
But it was God saying something else, and then as I jotted it down in a sermon reference, the chapter and verse and all. And I was like, and then I was just like, this. And my husband, kind of like, because we don't like take out our cell phones other than like, we do have a Bible app. So I'm not in
Mhm.
church one of these, right? I
Right.
turn it off and I'm,
I
focused
do too.
on the, right. So he was kind of, right. And so I'm just, I'm like, oh my God, I was in another world. Like, I'm not trying to like dramatize it, but I was just like,
No.
and that has happened over and over. So I have, like, I don't know how many, and he said, put them in notes. They're in here. So I realized, I said to my husband just last week, what am I supposed to do with these? God's doing something. And I was like, he just finally told me it's for a devotional. So I'm like, okay, here we go again.
One more plate to
So
spin, but
one more plate. So I'm like, okay, Lord. And for the 101 tips, that was self-publishing. I actually did it through KDP. So, shout out for Amazon. I might,
okay.
maybe unofficially,
Mhm.
right? Shout out to Amazon. So, but yeah, so I'm now looking about, should I go through a publisher or not? I just have thoughts about that, but that's for another conversation. But I did want to say that that's one of the books. One of the things that I think he wants me to turn into a book. I think.
Well, when it
Yeah.
comes through the pipeline and when it's done, please look me up because I would like to read that book and talk about that
Thank
book
you.
because your
Thank you.
writing
Will do.
style is comforting. It's like sitting and
Great.
having a conversation with a
Great.
friend
That's
who
beautiful. Thank you.
will gently encourage you, even convict you when you need to. Like I was convicted about self care. I
Mhm.
put it on the
Mhm.
back burner because I'm like, oh no,
Mhm.
I got it. Bootstraps. I got it. I can do this. I don't got it. I'm tired. I ended up being sick with COVID for 2 weeks. Like, this is the fourth time I've had it. This is the worst time I've had it because I wasn't taking care of myself.
Right.
And I
Right.
don't get sick
Right.
anymore. Like I thought my immune system was Fort
Yeah.
Knox. I was like,
Yeah.
I was home with the kids and had all the, with my son and my husband was at work. He's at home, and I was like, no,
Yes.
my immune system's great. It's Fort Knox. It is not when you
Yes.
don't eat
No.
properly and exercise and sleep and all the
Yeah.
things. I'm
All the
like,
things.
oh, I'm like
Yeah.
making sure that my husband and my child have balanced meals while I'm like, I'll eat the crust of that sandwich and grab it and go because I need to get some more. Come on. I know
Right.
better.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
better.
Yes. We
And
all
your
learning.
and your
Right.
yes, and your book reminded me that I know better and now I need
Yeah.
to do better. So
Right.
I'm a
Right.
work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good.
Well, Natalie, what is one last takeaway that you would like to share with us? And then we will also tell readers where they can find your book. I found it on Amazon, and I'll put a link in the description
Yeah.
box below. And I'll put also a link to Natalie's website,
Yes.
nataliemack.com, where you can find the book there. And
Yes.
but what is one last takeaway that you would like readers to learn or to know about this powerful little book that you've put out?
Yeah. I really want, you know, the the message that you don't have to need to find time, right, to get through the whole book, like, because they're
Mhm.
individual tips. So
Mhm.
it's not like you lose a storyline, right? You feel like,
Yes.
oh, I don't have time to read this book because I won't want to put it down, and I need to do this and this, and or I only have 10 minutes, or I only have 30 minutes, an hour. So it's just individual tips. They don't. There is that theme that apparently God created to weave through, but the tips
Mhm.
stand alone. So you don't have to really be concerned. Pick it up, go through a tip, put it down, It might be another week later you get back to it, but the book is there and you won't have lost any continuity. So that's the one thing that I would definitely like to encourage because I know how busy we are as homeschoolers. And one more thing, one more book, one more thing. And we typically are learners and lovers of learning, right? As
Yes.
homeschooling families. So it's not so much a book, like we buy books, right? It's just time to get
Reading them.
through them, right? Time to read them, right? We all have massive libraries, I'm sure, right? Because we love books. I love the smell of books. I love the feel of
Yes.
books. I love libraries. I love used curriculum sales. I love
I
your
do too.
library, Kimberly. If I came to visit you, you would love mine, all of this stuff, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, but it's just a matter of just don't feel like that, it's something that you have to finish all at once. And I even look through it and go, okay, I need to remind myself, right? Of some of the things in it. So I do think that I am going to start a um, doing some probably I may make it a Zoom community. I just need to see what God's telling me because I continue to hear that people want to work through the book. In community would be good. And you mentioned something about maybe a book club or something. So I'm kind of toying with what does that look like? Because I really feel like that would be value. I can expand more like what I'm doing here.
Yes.
But I also want others to be able to share because it's not just my voice, it's in community where I think, people can also receive a lot of blessings. So, yeah.
I will be in that community and I will promote that community.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Natalie, so much for being here today. You have blessed me. You have blessed so many who have come in contact with you, from your speaking to your
Thank
books to
you.
your work with
Thank you.
advocacy. Oh my goodness. I, I,
Thank
I
you.
do hope you sleep, but
I do.
you are
I
one of
do.
the busiest. You have a,
Yeah, I
a
do.
true servant's heart.
Yeah, I do. I do. And it's amazing. I'm only realizing that like our family is a military family. We've always like volunteered and served. But the Lord has recently taken me back to service when I was even a little girl. And that was service. Like my grandmother lived in a condominium, she and my grandfather did, and it was, a senior condominium. And I would visit the other seniors and I would braid hair and bake cupcakes with seniors. And I loved it. And I
Mhm,
think back, oh my gosh, Lord, He kind of has been taking me back, kind of looking back at that and going, that was service. Like, wow,
mhm,
oh
mhm.
my, okay. I was just enjoying the cupcakes, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm a cupcake lover today. So maybe,
Oh,
but
me
anyway,
too.
God has yeah, He brings us full circle. And so
Yes.
I'm thankful. So thank you so much. I appreciate being able to be here.
Well, we are so grateful that you are here, and you can find and I look forward to, actually, we're going to have Natalie on again for the Homeschool Counseling Network podcast in the future. It's going to be a couple of months out because I really want to celebrate all of her work that she's doing for Homeschool Awareness Month, which is in May, and
Yeah.
for military. Is it Military Families Awareness Month? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes, in May as well, because she has married the two of those together in
Yeah.
her Military Homeschoolers Association, her brand new
Yeah.
nonprofit that she has launched,
Yes.
which is so needed. Oh, I'm so excited for you.
Yes.
And I'm going to put links to that in the description box below.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
yes, you can find that at, let's see, militaryhomeschoolers.org. You can also
Yes.
find more about Natalie and her masterclass that she has, where you can also
Yeah.
find her book and a shop. And
So
for, I'm
yeah.
guessing, public speaking engagements, if you want to work with
Yes,
Natalie.
I
Uh,
love public speaking. Love
she
it.
does. She's
Love looking
everywhere
out.
and she will travel.
Yeah. Love looking out at an audience and just making connection. Uh, yeah, I love it. So,
Well, I will put a link to this, but I'm going to tell the listeners and the viewers right now. It is Natalie Mack, But we'll put a link to that in the
Exactly.
description box below. And
Thank
you are
you.
such a busy lady, but thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward
Thank
to
you.
chatting with you again soon on any future books and definitely on your latest nonprofit. So may God
Thank you.
bless you
I
and you have a
appreciate
great
that. To
day.
God be the glory. For
To
real.
God
Oh
be
my
the
gosh.
glory. Thank you.
Yes.
Take care. Bye, my
All
friend.
right. Bye bye.